Flag. Hey folks, welcome to those of you joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We'll just give it a minute or so to allow folks to join, and then we'll get cracking into it. Jeff, what time is it with you over there?
I'm at just gone noon here on the eastern seaboard.
Great. And how many offices have you got on the East Coast now?
We are only 5.
5.
Yeah, we're slowly whittling them down.
Neil, what are HubSpot's presences on the East Coast? I know you've got a significant base, but what does the rest of the East Coast look like?
So HubSpot, Cambridge is the main location, and there's probably 3 or 4 office buildings in Cambridge with at least sort of a couple thousand employees assigned to those locations. And then there's also an office just across in Maine, a smaller office, primarily for sales and support. Small, maybe 100 people or so are assigned there.
Got it. Cool. Well, as people are joining, we're gonna get on going with this. My name's Dan. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Kadence. We're building tools for the future of work, and it's a pleasure to host 2 of our friends here, Neil and Jeff, this morning here in the Bay Area as we discuss why hybrid working starts with people and with culture. So my name's Dan, as mentioned, co-founder and CEO at Kadence, spread throughout the US and predominantly in the UK as well. We've got well over 150 customers that have chosen us to be their platform of operations for their hybrid scheduling and space management solutions as they enter into a new chapter and a new era of their working lives. It's a pleasure to be joined by 2 of our friends here at Kadence, Jeff and Neil. Jeff, who are you? What are you doing here?
Hello, folks. My name is Jeff Gwinnett. I am the Director of Workplace Experience and Sustainability at SoftChoice. And SoftChoice, we're a cloud and services provider across North America with 2,000 people.
Amazing. Great to have you. And Neil.
Hi, everyone. I'm Neil Piliavin. I'm currently an early stage investor, but in my prior career as a longtime IT executive with companies such as Microsoft, Sonos, and most recently HubSpot, where I was director of collaboration and responsible basically for allowing people and helping people, work from our offices and really work from anywhere.
Great. Also, this morning we're going to be discussing as a group, and great to have you guys join me today. We're going to be discussing as a group why it's important to build not just an operating system for your offices, but more importantly, an operating system for your people and for hybrid as a whole. Some of the topics we're going to be discussing are hybrid hassles, one of my favorite phrases that I coined a few months back when I was in our London office. And I was just struck with so many hassles that came to the fore that I just hadn't experienced for 12 to 18 months. Getting things back to normal, unlocking doors, getting connected to different pieces of technology, just hybrid hassles that upset my rhythm. How to establish a people-first hybrid workplace that promotes collaboration. And Jeff started to get his team back into the workplace. So we're excited to hear what they're working on there. Tools to improve collaboration. In particular, Kadence is focused on providing people with better visibility on what their colleagues are up to and where and when they're going to be in location. And then we're going to dive into some real world examples of what's going on at HubSpot, what's going on at SoftChoice as well, and some from the Kadence customers too. But what we wanted to start with today is this phrase that we've been hearing now for the last few months, which is the Great Resignation. And there is many people that think that people are leaving jobs on a record rate because of dissatisfaction between pay, perhaps between location, which obviously contribute to it. But McKinsey have done a fantastic report that actually talks about work-life balance and sense of belonging being the major 2 drivers for people leaving organizations en masse. Now, McKinsey are reporting that there's well over 50% of the organizations that they're speaking with and working with are seeing a significant reduction in headcount for people choosing to become solo entrepreneurs or perhaps move away from main HQs and therefore not have access to the working conditions anymore. But what's really clear through this report, and we've seen this as well with the companies that we're working with, is that there is this disconnect now that people have been remote for so long between the mission, the values, the calling of the company, the why do I turn up to do my work every day. And so, Jeff, I want to hand over to you and kind of talk about, why do you think people join Soft Choice, and how are you encouraging them? How are you making sure that you're trying to foster an environment where, resigning is not on the order of the day?
Yeah, no, great point. So at Soft Choice, I mean, our culture has stood the test of time, and really it's even grown stronger during the pandemic and the forced remote experience. We have a lot of people that are joining the organization now and are really understanding what it looks like for the future of the workplace and what hybrid work looks like at Soft Choice. Really, it's all been about people. And truly kind of aligning the desires of the future workforce as well, and those that are coming in. And everyone's asking us, what does it look like? What are you requiring of employees? And we've been very, very firm that we're not demanding anyone to return to the workplace. We are making it a choice. So if you and your teams would like to visit a physical workplace that we provide for you, then you're more than welcome to do so. It's really down to the culture of those teams as well. So you're understanding the activities that take place and the need for people to use spaces to achieve those.
Have you seen any correlation between different roles and levels of management, so mid-management versus senior management versus perhaps more junior? Any sense of dissatisfaction with what's going on or has been going on, or the plans that are being proposed? Kind of what have you seen any different levels of engagement from those different tiers?
Yeah, so we've seen an appetite from certain subsets of the organization that really would like to get back into to being physically co-located together, and we've seen some groups as well that they're really comfortable where they are, and there are a lot of independent employees that really focus on individualized tasks as well. We opened our four offices in 4 markets a month ago, and we've seen quite a cross section of teams that are coming in, and we really kind of looked at it a little bit differently, as opposed to just opening our doors and saying the workplaces are available for you. We want you to be a bit more intentional, and we believe that teams are going to come back in together. And that they're already doing it offsite anyway, so they're going to bars, restaurants. So let's facilitate those sessions. And some of the groups that were kind of we created personas that were placed in that more remote first have tended actually to visit our spaces a lot more recently. So what we're seeing, a lot of satisfaction just getting back and seeing each other. But again, they're all recognizing as well that this is not a full-time. We're not going to be full-time in the office, that we have the opportunity and the choice to choose, and the autonomy and trust as well placed on them, and they can choose when and where they want to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and one of the common things that's going around right now in some of the subconscious here is that there are a lot of employers that are actually quite afraid of their employees because of the great resignation, and the power dynamic being, I think, much more in the hands of the employees these days. Neil, what have you advise a bunch of workplace technology companies? You've bought your fair share of workplace technology over time at HubSpot and other organizations. Where on this graph on the left-hand side do you think that really resonates? Perhaps management hasn't clocked that yet, or where are you? What really resonates for you on here?
I think the most important thing, sort of recognizing that your people can work from anywhere. And I guess I'll sort of counter Jeff here, as I think the workplace is anywhere where you can do work from. And we've seen a trend over the last few years, even pre-pandemic, that people were working from home when they had other things going on. People were doing workations where they'd go away for a couple weeks and work from there. And so even pre-pandemic, it was really important to have the tools that enabled them to do that. And we and the companies that I've been involved with went big in video conferencing to make sure that people could be seen and be heard, and make sure that video conferencing was really good. Because as you know, you could have a lot of bad experiences with video conferencing too, where the tools don't work, your Wi-Fi is bad, even in the offices where it's optimized, you could have poor experiences in conference rooms. So as the sort of IT person responsible for collaboration, we spend a lot of time making sure that there are the tools available for people to work productively together. And it wasn't just video conferencing, there was things like Slack and your sort of internal intranets, if you will, that sort of kept people abreast and on track, even then when they weren't able to be face to face. So all those things are very important in that toolkit.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is the fascinating thing, right? If work is wherever you can work from, and that's the workplace, wherever you can work from, it's very similar to us going on to a social media site. Neither of us will experience the same Facebook or the same Instagram or the same TikTok. We'll all have personalized versions of that based on algorithms and our preferences. And obviously, for so long, we've all kind of commuted to where the tools are, which has been the office. But it's just fascinating. I used to be a sound engineer, a musician in my old age, younger age. And one of the first things you do before you record a song is you treat the room. So every room is different that you're recording in. You go around, you put sound equipment here, you muffle some of the tone coming off that flat wall over here, or reverb coming off that flat wall, before you go ahead and buy the best microphones or the best musician you can find. You treat the room. And Jeff, it's just interesting. I'm not talking about physical space here, but everyone's going to have their own personalized version of what work looks like. I mean, there's some terrific reports about Airbnb, and their largest growing category right now is month-long stays. So people choosing to go and work somewhere for a period of time. That's fantastic for a particular section of the workforce. I've got 3 young kids in elementary school. There's no way we're ever going to go and do a month away working apart from the summer vacation, for example. So you getting all these juxtaposition personalization stories that are being blanketed out as truths. What are you seeing? You talked about autonomy there earlier. What are you seeing people pick up on and kind of resonating with? Because there really are, and Neil, I'll pass to you as well. I know HubSpot have got these different classes or different categories that they're trying to put people in. Jeff, how are you seeing people personalize their plan? Because one of the things that we're all desperate for is something that fixes a whole bunch of problems, but it feels like everything is massively personalized.
Absolutely, and that's the record, being able to recognize that as well. And I think pre-pandemic, we were trying to design environments for the diverse populations that we had, but it's even more important now. And I think people coming back into workplaces as well with audio distractions, visual distractions, are going to be acutely aware of those and being comfortable working outside of a physical space, working from anywhere. And we're really seeing that teams are kind of driving that demand as well and saying this is what we're looking for. And we're not looking for a workstation. We're looking for an open space that we can come and really kind of sidebar and whiteboard on, or we're looking for the video conferencing capabilities, or we're looking for a coffee bar. And that's ultimately what we're trying to provide here as well, is like kind of diverse a range of environments, whether it's in a soft choice office or not. That really is that ecosystem of work and workplace. And you touched on it earlier, is the workplace is not just the 4 walls that we lease anymore. There's so much more to it. And as long as, if you acknowledge that, I mean, the opportunities are endless as well. So putting that in the hands of our people and asking them the question, really, what is it that makes you tick? What makes you productive? How do you and your teams get your work done? And then trying to align some of those experiences, spaces, to that is really where the direction in which we want to go.
And practically kind of this a la carte style, which I love. I think all about freedom and choice, and you choose to employ which parts of the company you need to get your best work done today. I love that how do you budget for that? How do you
Yeah,
go, okay, are people allowed to go and work from a cruise ship because that just gets them in the zone? How
not
does
yet.
that how does that work?
Not yet. I
Okay.
mean, I can see a future where that might be the case as well. And you talk about higher workcations. And ultimately, we've been taking, obviously, since the start of the pandemic, look at our portfolio of spaces and what we have currently under contract, how much we spend on gross leasing, OPEX, all of the investments that go into those. And if we start to reduce in certain areas where we know that we've got a high demand for mobility, and quite frankly, it was happening before, you kind of touch on it. We're a sales organization. We had many people working the street before, so there's a lot of mobility going on. And the reduction of those spaces and that spend can then be attributed towards more people experience programs and workplace experience programs as well. And I mean, one thing we're going to be rolling out very soon is access to a flexible portfolio of spaces. We're going to put guardrails around it, but if we look at that spend compared to what we were spending pre-pandemic, it's night and day. So there's a ton of opportunities there for us to really to look at the budget and be rather efficient and effective with it.
Got it. Neil, how are you thinking about this as well?
Yeah, so one thing again at HubSpot that I can reflect on that really worked is there can be an infinite number of choices if you ask every employee what they want to do, but culture is the topic of this webinar is the most important part, and so we tried to simplify in terms of personas as the personas of where people want to work from, whether it's office all the time, or whether it's at home all the time, or whether it's the hybrid approach, so that's one axis. The other axis, which was important, was the culture of the organization. And it makes a big difference whether you're part of a product organization or perhaps you're in IT and facilities and you need to be on site for certain, or you're in a, sort of pure knowledge, finance, HR, and some of these other positions. And each one of those organizations would have somebody appointed as a culture manager whose job it was to sort of really take the temperature. How does the product team want to be onboarded? If everybody is working remote and yet new employees that have to get familiar with how things are done from a development standpoint and check-in and mentoring, they may feel more comfortable with being on site more frequently, and then that organization would develop sort of its own policies or guidance for when you should be in the office. Again, this is sort of pre-pandemic, but having done that prior to everyone working remotely really helped the organization think about what was it going to be like when offices will open again. And so I think that simplification is important, because you still have to have some policies and guidance, but within that framework of simplification, you want to allow employees to work how they work best.
Yeah, and the truth is, for so many companies, they've had this ability to do this since Wi-Fi, essentially, right? We'll talk about this more in a moment. But now it's being organized, it's being orchestrated, and there's a lot of power dynamics going on between employees and managers. Jeff, I know that you've had huge, amazing results of people coming back and just absolutely loving it. Talk to us about, I don't know whether you're doing NPS scores, whether you're doing smart vision cameras to see how, I don't know what you're doing, but I'd love to hear about some of your experiences, things that have gone well, things that need to get better. But as well, have you seen any difference between the more extroverted people and more introverted people in your team? Yeah, love to hear about your experience. I'm sure many of our audience haven't gone back yet or are in the process of thinking about it.
Well, again, we started a little differently. Our original plan was, we're going to reopen in phases, and we'll open the doors and educate people on how to use the new tools. And we've changed it quite dramatically, where teams can now basically take a suite, and we don't call them offices anymore, very intentionally. Take a suite offline, and their entire team can come in, and adjacent teams or functionally adjacent teams that they would like to work with for the day, if everyone's comfortable. And then for us, we've been doing this for 4 weeks now, and in certain markets we're getting a ton of great foot traffic, and we're getting repeat visits as well. So, I mean, there in itself is a great scoring mechanism to say, well, we're getting a lot of people come back and these repeat visitors, so it's really working. But we're also sending, obviously, the surveys, and we're looking for ways, and we're talking to your team as well about how can we quantify this and focus groups, and really talking to the individuals that came into an office and still working digitally as well, so we can play off the quantitative and the qualitative data. We're also assessing occupancy. So for us, it's if our spaces are consistently getting foot traffic through, we're obviously doing something right. And then we're looking, okay, so what is it? What spaces are those teams using? So are they using more of the open collab, the ancillary spaces, the closed room collaboration spaces? So trying to come at a very data approach, and then go back to teams to say, this is what we believe is working for you. Can you confirm, validate? And if it's not, let's iterate on this, because we don't see this as a one and done. And that's the rationale we've provided to our people as well, to say, we need you to come back into our workplaces so we can learn from you and understand what it is you truly need and what your teams truly need. And we'll iterate on it. It's very much like a product. This is an evolution of the workplace. This is not, we've made some modifications, and this is it for now. We're going to consistently adapt.
And do you think there's one of the biggest pieces here, the learnings from the McKinsey report, which I just think has cut through so much of the noise that you're seeing from mainstream tabloids about great resignation being all to do with salary, and all to do with flexibility of work. This sense of belonging is something that really stands out for me. Have you seen people happier? Have you seen people kind of more relaxed? I mean, one of the big critiques of, and I'm all for remote. I think that plays a big part in anyone's hybrid strategy.
Yeah.
But that sense of belonging, we just had our old team offsite in Northern Ireland 3 weeks ago, and everyone's glowing. Now, that's not going to last forever. It's kind of infatuation, like a new relationship, right? So I'm interested in what the kind of the solid state looks like going forwards, or the steady state. But yeah, that sense of belonging. Have you kind of seen those love tanks be topped up, as it were, or those EQ tanks being topped up?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there is going to be this wave of, it's just like kind of seeing each other again, seeing each other for the first time, like the first day at school. We see a lot of smiley faces and a lot of incredible feedback from the teams, just being back in person with each other and their teams and having that human connection. And for some groups that really works, and for other groups that doesn't work, and we acknowledge that, and we know that's okay. So for those groups that really thrive off that in-person dynamic, some of the more creative groups are really bouncing ideas off. This is really going well for them, and they're the ones that are repeat visitors. And for some of the others who have had to commute a long way, and they understand, they're playing out the value proposition of had to commute for an hour and a half, and ultimately it wasn't as productive as working from home or working elsewhere for the day. So, they're weighing that up as well. And we're seeing a lot of commentary come back from that as well. And we'll continue to learn from each of the groups that come through as we continue to push this.
Yeah, and I think one thing on this slide that I don't know if it's called out explicitly, sort of, value by the organization and sense of belonging, but people want to feel like they have opportunity, and they have opportunity to be promoted, and they have opportunity to be seen, and recognition comes in a lot of different ways. But one of the things that I've heard commonly talked about is, if you're not in the office, you're not going to be seen as much. You're not going to be recognized for the work. You won't have those opportunities for promotion. And I think organizations have to, again, pre-pandemic, when it was just sort of about telecommuting, it was different. Now you're working remotely 4 or 5 days a week, or maybe you're working remotely all the time. How do you get those opportunities to be promoted? Organizations have to think about really recognizing that type of worker a little bit differently than what they may have done in the past. And it goes back to culture and being very intentional about your workforce in a way that organizations didn't think about 2 years ago.
Yeah, intentional is the word, and I think that there's going to be so much more because of that, because you can't possibly judge people with their proximity anymore. It has to all become about output and quality of output. I think that's played a huge part into it, which means that managers can't afford to be lazy, perhaps. And the practices of, hey, how's it going in the lunch line or whatever, need to be much more intentional than lucky and fortunate. Now, I know there is some amazing work done from one of the original Intel CEO about just how much data is actually transmitted through these short interactions, and the argument there is that actually there's much more high fidelity data and information that's transferred between colleagues in these short micro interactions, but it's very, very hard to account for and very hard to try and practice and plan in. So this level of intentionality, this level of discipline, OKRs, tracking, making sure that that's all being done properly, and it's not just, hey, how's it going? I feel really good about Jane and Joe, and they're really doing well. And that comes from a sense of proximity. And it's not just in person, like that can even happen across time zones. Like if somebody's in your time zone as a manager now, then you're more exposed to them. You know what their work-life balance looks like, you know what their output looks like more, just through general communication. Jeff, how are you guys thinking about marrying all that up?
Yeah, I mean, it really takes an organization to re-engineer and look at how work is actually assessed. And I mean, for me, I joined SoftChoice 2 weeks before the pandemic started, and I have a team distributed across the portfolio. And this has been a blessing. I mean, it ultimately has been a level playing field for my team and I, and really getting to know the team that are in Chicago and Atlanta or Montreal. As opposed to being physically present on site in Toronto, which probably a lot of my time and attention would have been consumed by those that were physically co-located next to me. But at SoftChoice, we're really trying to understand output, exactly that, OKRs, KPIs. Let's look at actually the roles and what people are actually doing and how we measure them and how we measure productivity and how we measure effectiveness as well. Ultimately, someone could do their job in 50% of their time. Should they be, if they shouldn't be punished for being efficient in their role, but what is the actual job that they're doing, and what is the role, and what is actually their accountabilities and the time it takes for them to do that. So it really does take a huge undertaking up and down the stack as well of the leadership group to really look at this.
So this leads nicely into kind of what I call Cadence's pyramid for the future of work, which is all kind of leading around this activity-based work. And this is the pyramid: the why, the what, the how, and then the when, where, and who. And this is something that we've devised here at Kadence to help our customers think through how they're going to be working going forwards. Now, if you kind of zoom out of this and think about the platform underneath this, that all of this work sits on, historically, we've inherited offices from factory lines in the industrial age, where perhaps we commuted to the office, or we commuted to the factories, because that's where the tools of the trade lived. That's where collaboration could happen because there wasn't telephones or what have you. And so we commuted for productivity. We commuted for the tools to do our better version of our work. Now, the tools, by and large, for white collar workers, at least from a productivity perspective, are now commoditized, right? We've got phones in our pockets, we've got laptops wherever we want them to be, and by and large, we have data wherever we want it to be as well. So the tools of the trade are now commoditized, and they are absolutely everywhere. So what does that mean when the office is no longer the default platform for work? What becomes the default platform for work that this why, what, how, when, where, and who sits on top of it? And we think that the platform for work is now time. It's your working week, your Monday to Friday or whatever. That is now the platform for work. And actually the office moves into this how layer, which we call the toolkit layer, where it's a particular type of activity that can get done in the office. And that activity is worth the commute for, to Jeff's point, because there are different tools that you can employ at the office to do your job better. So The platform for work, we believe, is no longer the office. We believe it's the working week. And then on top of that sits the why. So this is your company's, why employees are going to get up in the morning, why they're going to give themselves to your business. That's your mission, your vision, your values. That's the why I'm going to work. The what you're going to work is your objectives, your key results, your tasks, your jobs to be done list. That's your what. So why am I working? What am I working on? And then the how layer. And this is where you guys, you experts, come in, because the how layer is essentially a ballooning, in my eyes, of HR. I think HR is going to become an enormous organization inside of organizations over time, because this is the toolkit. This is providing, HR is providing the tools of the trade for people to do their best work. And so that's infrastructure and facilities going up into HR. That's IT going up into HR in my eyes, because that is providing the toolkit for people to do their best work. And so obviously you've got Slack, Zoom, Office, Teams, what have you, from a toolkit layer. And we're now saying that the office now moves from the platform underneath all of this into the toolkit layer. We'll talk about the when, where, and who in a moment, but Neil, does that resonate with you? Are we just pontificating from an ivory tower over here, this kind of activity-based work, but rethinking it through the toolkit? How does it think?
I'd say most of it resonates, Dan, except for maybe IT rolling into HR.
I'm sure they'll love that.
Myself. But everything, like I'd say, like everything old is new again, because again, you had this sort of designing of the office and special purpose spaces. If it was training, or if it was a big event, or perhaps a special conference room or an executive conference room. And then we started to see one-on-ones and telephone booths and things like that. Again, as we were recognizing that work can be done from anywhere, the offices were evolving. Now, I think, though, it even kicks it into higher gear because of this. And so, as Jeff alluded to, organizations have to, take a pulse of how many people are going to be coming into the office, and really reevaluate that real estate portfolio, which for a lot of companies is a lot of money. But then you also reevaluate how I would say that most facilities managers pre-pandemic, they optimized for number of people that they could get, butts in seats. And now you may optimize entirely differently for events, or for even, you talk about activity-based work. But that may be, just, your team, as Jeff again said, like, you can reserve the whole space for your team to come in and do what they want to do, because maybe on that day, a couple of days, having everybody together and having a meal and going out is the right way to accomplish the task. But I'd even argue that organizations should create a physical space that, if they want people to come in the office, that incentivizes them, and not just with ping pong tables and coffee and smoothies, but perhaps there's showcase. People still want to get out and they want to go places, but maybe you showcase the local artist in the space that you have, and you change that up every month, and then people will say, like, yeah, let's get together for this meeting. At the same time, we can see what's going on in the office. That'll be a experience for us. And so you're exactly right, as the office becomes a tool for the organization to, develop how they want. I think it's sort of really, really exciting time. Maybe not for the landlords, but certainly for the organizations and the people.
Yeah, no, it's remembering that people are human, right? And it's, my colleague Steve, we meet once a week in person. We make sure that we have that face-to-face time. We both come away energized. There's something metaphysical that happens when people meet together and bounce ideas off one another, and just doesn't happen over mediums like this all of the time, I don't think. Jeff, looking at this, what resonates, what doesn't? And then, as somebody in your position looking after your kind of global workplace, how are you measured? What's your new OKRs? What do they look like?
Yeah, so it does absolutely resonate, and then we chatting about this. The office becomes part of that ecosystem of work, and it is very much like using Teams to collaborate, to connect with each other, and our spaces are somewhat experiential centers. They need to be flexible as well to the variety of tasks that people and activities that people want to use them for. But for us, I mean, and we're not placing emphasis on the office anymore. It's not the only place where you can get work done. We've known that for a while, and we will be making some big decisions. But it's exciting as well, because ultimately we have an opportunity here to revolutionize and to really evolve those physical spaces and create compelling experiences for people to get on the tube and move across town to come into a soft choice office and to experience something bigger than they are. But it is part of that toolkit layer, and we know that we're not going to have occupancy every day of the week. There's a lot of chatter on LinkedIn about occupancy days where Mondays and Fridays might be a complete ghost town because people want to work remotely, bookend the weekend. So what does that look like for us, and how do we manage and measure it as well? And I mean, how can we forecast utilization of space, and how can we really truly understand who might be coming in and to make sure those spaces are fit for purpose for them as well. So the sales team has a completely different set of requirements from a marketing team, and ultimately that will be what kind of wins out on the from the office front as well, and making sure that those spaces are fit for purpose for those teams to use.
And so for all of our workplace directors on the line, how are you being measured? What does good look like for soft choice out of Jeff over the next year? We're in November 2022. What are you guys wanting to have achieved?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been aggressive with some of our moves as well. We are downsizing because, again, our population is demanding digital work first. So with that comes obviously some real estate decisions that need to be made, and a lot of modifications as well. So ensuring that those spaces meet the needs of those teams that are coming in. And pre-pandemic, we had a one-to-one sharing. We had a one-to-one assignment of all physical spaces and work settings. That's completely gone out the window. We've moved to a completely unassigned activity-based model. And how are we being measured? Well, again, we talk about foot traffic and occupancy, and really those are the metrics that we're really keen on right now. Those will be the ones that really kind of prove that what we're doing here at Soft Choice is proving worthwhile. So we've made some investments. That's kind of right in the business case for the next round of investments as well. We get the foot traffic and the desired outcomes from people coming into the space to warrant the next round.
Cool. Just aware of time, we could spend a lot of time on this. We'll maybe come back to some of it in our questions. One of the things that we really focus on here at Cadence is making sure that we're solving these hybrid hassles. And so one of that is people's schedules, and we'll show a quick video about this in a moment. This is a live shot from a team Slack channel in London where they are trying to figure out when they're going to come into the workplace. And so this is Kaya at the top saying, so is this a yes or no for Wednesday? She then chases to the next day. So what's the verdict, gang? Sorry, Kaya, I can't actually. I'm expecting IKEA to come and do a delivery on. So Natalie's now not going to come in, but they were going to go out for tacos. So it was going to be experiential. They were going to go out for tacos. But now Josiah's not going to go in because they're not going out for tacos. Anthony's now not commuting from outside of London into London. Kaya then says next week. Irvins goes, oh, there's a product launch next week. I'm back to back. I can't come in. And it just ends up becoming this snowball of disorganization and things basically being very frustrating and falling apart. And Aaron Levy at Box, CEO of Box, I'm confident that quantum mechanics is easier to understand than trying to figure out how teams will manage their schedules in a hybrid workplace. And this is something that we've been really building for at Cadence for the last little while here, and excited to have our first version of this out now, and an even better version of it coming out in December. What we're calling cadences. And essentially what this means is, you can see Sophie, VP of Marketing, let's say she's based in the Bay Area. On Tuesday here, you can see that she's set her cadence for the week to be in the office on Tuesday. And then she's going to be in the San Francisco. And then on Thursday, she's going to be in the Palo Alto office, so a half an hour drive away. Now, because she's going in on Tuesday, then Jack, her marketing manager, has seen that. He's been alerted to that, and he's going to be coming in as well. Completely unrelated to from a working perspective, but Joe, who's a product manager in another team, he's actually just buddies with Jack. And so anytime they're in the city together, he likes to go in and make sure he gets that face-to-face time. Now, the problem is that this all falls apart if Sophie now has that IKEA delivery and she moves to Wednesday. You need to make sure that Jack and Joe's all tracks or gives them the opportunity to track and adjust their flight plan, their cadence in real time. So this is what we're building Kadence around, this relational web of individuals that happen to use space rather than space first, and then individuals get to choose. Now, this is just the employee side, right? Which is huge, not just for individuals, but teams, being able to find the marketing team's cadence or the product team's cadence or what have you. But it's also huge for facilities. And Jeff, you kind of talked about this, and Neil, I know that HubSpot have looked at some of their real estate as well. How do you forecast, right? So if all of a sudden James, the poor guy who looks after HR or facilities, he's actually got the engineering team monthly offsite happening on Wednesday. So if Sophie moves her cadence, and now they've gone from a one-to-one desk relationship to a 0.6 desk per person relationship, all of this needs to add up. How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and I'm ultimately it's just one that we are, we're concerned with occupancy caps in place and load balancing, and really being smart about understanding who's coming in and when they're coming in, and so that we can really again tailor some of those solutions, because each team is different, and what Sophie's team versus what Joe's team might require on any given day could be completely different. So having that awareness and that insight for us is huge, and really putting the people aspect of it at the very center was another reason why we chose Kadence.
And one of the things we often talk about is in the past, people were static, spaces were static and people were predictable. And now you have dynamic people and you need to have flexible spaces. Neil, how have you thought about this with the companies you're advising and your previous places of work? How are they thinking about scheduling? Because I know that, Jeff, one of the biggest things for you is people just wanting to make sure that they're in when their friends are in.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you think about this, Neil?
Yeah, it could be pretty complex. Obviously, the data and having the data from your platforms like Kadence is going to be an important metric here. There's a little bit of a push-pull, so on the one hand, you've got organizations wanting to sit together, the marketing department, everybody, they want to sit with their colleagues. And so even though you have flexible seating, you might assign an amount of space to each one of those organizations. At the same time, you want to be as flexible as possible to account for the fact that, marketing may have a day where 100% of the people come in for an event. And then if that happens, they will take up more than their allocation. I think it'll work out. I mean, I don't think that that's unsolvable. Again, you'll sort of find out with the data. Again, as an organization, you've got to be a little bit more intentional. So maybe the facilities department will go to marketing and say, how many events are you going to do a year where you're going to have 90 to 100% of your people? They'll do the same with the other organizations. And then by having that data, they'll be prepared. So like on this date, it will be spontaneous, but they'll know on this date, we're going to have to make an arrangement for it. Now, that said, you'll build your offices such that you'll have a certain type of monitor on each desk, and you'll know where the conference rooms are in the building that can accommodate the breakout sessions. So it, in a lot of ways where things were almost sometimes a little bit more random because all you were optimizing for was butts in seats. Now you're really optimizing for this whole experience. We know product does this. We know marketing does that. We know finance. We know how these organizations are coming together and working best and we will build the office to accommodate that.
Yeah.
So I think it's like a really exciting time. The other thing is not talked about as much, but I think it's sort of exciting in this hybrid and flexible work and not having assigned desks. Is if you were a new employee or somebody new to the team, you often got assigned the worst space to sit because you just didn't have the priority. Now you can go online and book the area that's got the best view of downtown Toronto or something, and it's just going to be such a better experience for you.
Cool. Before we move over to questions, let's go ahead and share this short clip from the Chargeify and Cadence team.
Remote working is great, but meeting face-to-face is pretty great too. It's finding the perfect balance that allows teams and companies to really flourish. That's why hybrid working has the potential to be so amazing. The thing is, it's hard to get the real-time visibility and context you need to understand when people are going to be in the office. Kadence makes this easy. When you want to meet face-to-face, Kadence gives you the real-time context you need about people and spaces, so you can seamlessly arrange to meet with the right people at the right time and do your best work. The more choice you have in hybrid working, the more context you need to be able to collaborate and book in person. Kadence gives you access to your team's schedule, so you always know when people are coming to the office and what spaces they've booked. And because everything's synced up, you can easily make changes on the fly, so you never miss a beat. Kadence gives you the power to navigate the ever-changing schedules of hybrid working, facilitating true cross-functional collaboration, and helps you create and manage anything you want, from marketing meetings to team socials, so you can build deeper connections with your team. Kadence, find your rhythm for work.
Awesome, fantastic. And so that Cadence feature as part of the main Cadence product has been one of the main reasons why Cadence has been attracting so many customers over the last 6 months. People realizing that hybrid is not about spaces only, it's about relationships, it's about people forging those connections and making the magic happen when they connect in person, in real time. And that all syncs up with your space organization platform from Cadence as well. Jeff, I know that you guys have been thinking about rolling this out. You started to roll parts of it out already. What's the feedback been like? How easy it's been to use?
Yeah, the feedback's been absolutely exceptional. So from my team deploying it on the administration side. And then, I mean, again, we go back to the program in which we've enabled people to come in. We're treating it from a change management perspective. So there's not a mass rush when the doors are open that we're bringing teams in so we can onboard them onto these tools. But the feedback has been it's so easy to use to book space. And truth be told, we put some controls ahead of it from a vaccination, health and safety perspective, and people are already kind of circumventing those because they know how easy it is to use this tool, which, I mean, it kind of speaks volumes about the product.
Great, fantastic. Amazing. Well, thank you guys for joining. Before we go, one last question, then we'll jump into some of the audience questions here. What are you doing about safety, Jeff? You've obviously got offices all over the place. What are you doing about safety? How does that relate to experience and people?
Yeah, we aligned. We opened a space last year to test out a number of safety controls, and then we aligned with the International Well Building Institute and their Well Health and Safety program, which really looks at holistic safety. So we're not just focused on COVID, we're focused on managing safety holistically. And we've been so transparent with our communications and education to our people about what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And we onboard them through team sessions, walking through documentation. But safety has been the very cornerstone of our return to office program, but I guess all focused around people as well. And we're learning from them. So we're asking them about the controls are in place. We're monitoring real-time infractions and educating them via Teams. But it's been up front and center. And I mean, everyone's so acutely aware now about their own personal safety and a potential risk to their safety as well. So we've been really keen on it.
Cool. Well, if you do have any questions about how some of our leaders, some of our customers are rolling out their back to workplace programs, how they're looking after safety, what parts of the Kadence platform they're using for vaccine verifications, what parts of the platform they're using for insights about how spaces are being used, or even some of the new scheduling tools, then we'd love to speak with you. You can email me personally at dan@cadence.co in order to hook up a conversation with myself or one member of our team. We're going to move briefly to questions now. Neil, this one's for you. How do you think about privacy concerns here? What if employees want to go heads down, they want to go to work, the mother-in-law is staying, the father-in-law is staying for the week, there is no office at home anymore, the spare room's gone, so they just want to go and get their head down in the office. How do you think about privacy concerns and perhaps not wanting to be seen for collaboration if you've got that project deadline coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I think like other IT tools, you sort of function on an opt-in base. So obviously, if you're not intending for everybody to know where you are on that particular day, you can perhaps opt out of sharing that information with your circle or with your friends. So really you have to respect that part of the the employee's wish list.
Jeff, I mean, we were talking the other day about there being a lot of technology inside of the workplace that quite honestly can already track people. If you've had Wi-Fi in your workplace for a while, it's very easy to put the MAC ID of that laptop next to that individual and see what floor they're on. So obviously employees are and I'm personally myself, I'm very aware I don't want necessarily to be tracked, but I do want the benefits of knowing that, Jeff has come onto my floor because I've been meaning to catch up with him for a while. And it wasn't worth a Slack, but I did just want to, or a Teams message, but I did just want to connect over that thing. Is it all about communication and just being upfront for people?
Absolutely. Going back to the transparency of communications and explaining the value prop to those folks as well about why we're doing this. And again, it's completely opt-in, but if you do opt in, here's the benefits that you will get from the platform.
Got it. Cool. We've got a question from Gren here. Neil, I'll address this to you. A lot of companies maybe seem to be planning days per week models in hybrid work. This is a very office-centric approach, treating remote days as a perk. Be interested to know your view there. I know the Financial Times has started calling this twat, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The people that come in Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. How do you think through that? I know HubSpot have got the remote individuals, they've got the collab individuals. How have you seen that being thought through?
So at HubSpot, the way it was implemented is, you sort of chose your working model, but it didn't go beyond that. It wasn't, if you signed up as a hybrid worker, for instance, you're saying that you're going to be in the office 2 to 3 days a week, but you're not saying on which particular days. I know that sometimes leadership longs for certainty, so they want to know, is the marketing department here on Monday and Wednesday? I tend to think that overcomplicating things. I think that, again, as you if you start flexible with, hey, you're going to be a hybrid worker, you're sort of saying you're going to be in the office that many days a week, you will find out from the stats. And of course, you can anonymize the names, but you'll find out from the stats how often is that really happening, and then you adjust your policies accordingly. I think the larger issue, though, is that as a manager, when you sort of go back to your OKRs, and as a manager and a leader, you want to accomplish certain things. You may decide, in order to accomplish those specific things, that we need this kind of attendance in the office for this time period. And whether that time period is a week, or whether it's a month, or whether it's 6 months, that's what you as a leader communicate to your organization. and then you get that adherence to it. But I don't think you can say now, or you should say now, that choose your 3 days that you're going to be in the office. Everybody would choose Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and take off on Friday. And then if that's not your intention though, so again, it will evolve. I think it's got to be very purposeful. It's got to be this activity-based work model, this intentional based work, and the drivers are really those people that are responsible for the OKRs and what that organization is trying to accomplish.
Mm. Jeff, anything to say on that before we move to the next?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Are you a twat? What's going on? Come on. What are
certainly
you?
not a twat. I love that. Again, we create personas, and those are more guardrails and not expectations that you spend 2 to 3 days in the office. And we understand, people it might actually be a lot more occupancy one week and completely remote digital the week after. I like it. It's organizations coming out saying, yeah, we're going hybrid, we're going to have a flexible workplace model, and you're in Monday through Wednesday and then you're out. That's rigid flexibility. That's not flexible. That's not really meeting the employee demand, the employee population demand for flexibility. So again, we've created these guardrails and said, we've got these 3 personas. You might be in 2 to 3, you might not be, and that's completely okay. But again, we're going to learn, and we're going to have all of this data that we can really apply to our workplace models to really truly understand.
Yeah, great. And I'll go last, and then we'll move on to the next question. So what you're describing there is what I'd call brute force hybrid, which is basically you have to come in on these times. And there's very good reasons for doing that. One of those reasons is if you're going to keep an office, it's so you have the collisions of people bumping into each other. It's so you have a place to house culture. It's so you have a place to do those creative kickoffs. It's so you have a place for ideas to happen faster and be decided faster, and to whiteboard in person. Now that doesn't work if you've got people overlapping like ships in the night. And I saw somebody yesterday actually, going into the office, their colleagues not being there, and then they spent all day on Zoom. So obviously you don't want that to happen. So that's where tools like Kadence come in. It's all about this smart load balancing, scheduling, meeting need with demand, and making sure that those ships, those trains arrive on time. And that is those people connecting. So I think that the other thing as well is the brute force hybrid will make certain people allergic or not want to come potentially to work for that particular organization. And you're already seeing folks at larger organizations here in the Valley say you have to come back on these particular days. There are very good reasons for that, as we mentioned, but really it's this collaboration tool that essentially collaborates schedules that I think is what people need here. But thank you for your question, Grant. Next question, and then we'll move perhaps one more, and then we'll have to call it a day. We've got, for those that are able to hold on, we've got a treat for you if you hold on right to the last minute, which we'll share in a moment. But we're anonymous. We have desks. We have enough desk space for employees, and do not anticipate rapid growth for at least the next 2 years. What would you advise us to do with all of the available space? So most of Kadence customers, and I'll pass to you, Jeff, most of Kadence customers have either grown during the pandemic, so they've got more people, and they've kept the same amount of space. And so they're making those desks work harder, those rooms work harder, but with more people. So a bit like an airline might oversell a flight. You might oversubscribe your office compared to what you might used to. The other part of it is we've seen some of our customers as well dramatically reduce real estate. And again, you've got the same challenges there of, and JP Morgan have gone from 1 person per desk to 0.6 persons per desk. Jeff, you touched upon this and how you guys are thinking about your real estate. What do you do with all that desk availability?
Yeah, we've been we've made some big decisions. We're also shifting from a me model to a we model. So again, a lot of our real estate was consumed by me spaces, those individual workstations, and we've pulled out a lot. In the suites that we've enabled, we've reduced a lot of those individual spaces and repopulated them with we, and that might be, I mean, we're looking at furniture solutions as well, because they're ultimately flexible, but some open collab ancillary pieces to enable more of those activity-based environments in those areas. And if you've got a long-term lease and you've got plenty of ability to test and learn, take out a few pods and drop in some other settings. And there's a number of companies out there as well where you can lease furniture, so you don't have to commit from a capex perspective. And we're working with a group called Court right now, where we've taken workstations out. We're going to be dropping in ancillary pieces, other modular furniture elements, and we'll be testing it and learning from it. And if it works, then we can look long term what that program looks like. And if it doesn't, we swap it out, we try something different.
Got it. Neil, any last words for you?
I was always looking to use available space to see if we could build some, interesting collaborative types of spaces, whether they be bigger screens, touch screens, multi-touch, and so forth. Because at the end of the day, the idea is that you want, you're trying to get greater output of those opportunities where people come together. And it was innovative years ago to just put a screen in there. Now you've got a lot of different collaborative tools. So I if you have the funds, I'd consider experimenting with things like that, or again, take some of that space and turn it into a place where employees are just going to want to come and get together. And maybe it's some artwork, maybe it's a little music, or whatever it might be that creates that great experience for your employees.
Awesome, guys. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today and share your expertise with us. Jeff and Neil, it's been terrific to hear about how you guys are returning to the workplace, how you're thinking about it, and some of the early success. Obviously, the future remains uncertain as we deal with different variants, but hopefully this is something that we'll all be out of the other side of soon. Even though it's not going to be weeks or even months, it's going to be months and years, I think, going forwards from here. So thank you so much for taking the time today. We'd love to invite you all to join us on December the 13th for our next webinar, the Human-Centric Workplace Playbook, by our great friend Simone Fenton-Jarvis. And for the first 50 people that sign up, you will receive a free copy of her amazing new book. So that's coming up on December the 13th. So she is now Workplace Consulting Director at Relogics, previously at Ricoh, and is an amazing thinker on this space. So look out for that one. If you'd love to find out more about Kadence, get a demo, or find out more about how some of our workplace practitioners are advising companies on their return to the workplace and making sure that it's centered around people as the web, as the connective tissue of organizations, not just the space, then please reach out to me at dan@cadence.co, or check out our website, cadence.co, and book a demo today. Again, Neil, Jeff, thank you. I'm sure we'll get some Kadence socks to you for Christmas in the post for joining. Really appreciate you guys taking the time and joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.